I'll join palms and repeat after me. I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
And keeping the palms joined. Put the palms down. All right, good morning, everybody. Nice to see you all. Thank you for showing up. Glad you're here. It's funny, I was just asked a refresher of the three things I always say. They think good thoughts. How come everybody always, which is funny, because what I was asked was, what's the second one I always say? Let's try this again. Think good thoughts. We're like little kids in school, you know? Think good thoughts. Speak good words. Why does everybody always, it's always the one people forget? Why do you think it is? Well, now everybody's silent.
Because it's the hardest to do.
The hardest to do. That's why you're in the front row, right? You hear the teachings faster. Think good thoughts, speak good words, do good deeds. You know, they should put that thing on a t-shirt. But ultimately, that's the teaching of the Buddha. So yes, it's an expression. It's where I learned it from my first teacher, Buddhist nun Venerable Yizhe. She learned it from her teacher, Master Xing Yung. Think good thoughts, speak good words, do good deeds. And it sounds so simple. It sounds like just this, expression, like a bumper sticker or something like that. But it really comes from the heart of the Buddhist teachings. So we talk about karma. Karma is action, literally action. And we generate karma, action, three ways: body, speech, mind. What we think, what we say, and what we do. This is our karma. Everything in Buddhist practice is about being mindful and aware of our karma. Like no matter how many things you memorize, no matter how many sutras or Buddhist books you read, no matter how many hours of meditation you do, it always comes down to those three things. Our karma, what we think, what we say, and what we do. So think good thoughts, that's what we think. Speak good words, what we say. Do good deeds, what we do. So while it seems, and I know for me, always just throwing it out there as an expression and, the t-shirts and the bumper stickers and all those kinds of things, but it sounds like just a simple expression, but that is 45 years of the Buddhist teachings in one little thing. That's it. And so the question, which is what triggered me to bring this up now, when I walked in, someone said, you always say think good thoughts. What's the second one? Right? Speak good words and then do good deeds. So I found a lot of humor in the fact that the second one is what gets overlooked a lot. It really does. Even when we think good thoughts, which happens, I don't know, once a week, maybe, something like that, at least for me. I don't know about any of you. For me, that's the hardest one, the thoughts. The thoughts, I don't want to say I've given up completely on those changing, but, at this stage of my journey, I don't know, those are changing, maybe once a year, there'll be a slight change in the thoughts I have. And I mean that very seriously. I'm not just trying to sound humble, right? Like those to me are the hardest. Megan, there are seats if you want to come up here. It's up to you. Then what we say. I really do think this is the hardest for so many people. And a lot of it does have to do with, our phones, social media, things like that, because we can stay silent all day long and post like a million things and read a million things and type a million things. But the speaking good words isn't just about what we say. To me, it's really how we communicate. It's an expression of our thoughts. And so the question is, you could stay silent, but what are you typing? You know, what are you writing? Also, for me, the kind of the thinking good thoughts, speaking good words also has to do with what we're viewing, what we're consuming. But so much of it is about what we're typing and the battles we get into on social media with absolute strangers. And I'm not suggesting you drop the battle. Do not drop the battle. We need to keep the battle going, but be mindful and aware of how we battle verbally. So the speaking good words is really difficult, I find, for a lot of people. And then the doing good deeds, I find, this is obviously just all of this is my opinion. I'm just making this stuff up. But I find the doing good deeds for a lot of people to be the easiest, because people often say, well, I'm just going to go do good stuff, you know, and it helps. It helps us. I mean, when we do good stuff, how do we feel? We feel good. And if we feel good, we have a tendency to think better thoughts. And if we do good stuff and feel good and we think better thoughts, then there's a slight chance that we might actually say good things. There's also a chance that we might do good things, and as we're leaving from doing good things, we're actually complaining or talking trash about the whatever we just came from. You know, you ever gone to an event and done a lot of really good like community service type stuff, and then driving away, you're just like gossiping about every person who was there and everything the organization was doing wrong and everything you would have done differently, you know? So be mindful of all of those words. It's tough. Think good thoughts, speak good words, do good deeds. That is 45 years of the Buddhist teachings in one sentence. So, all right. So to those who are joining virtually, welcome. Glad you're here. Thank you for showing up. Feel free to say hello as you are on the screen there. Cinda already with her questions. We'll get to those, Cinda. Hang on. We're going to start with a meditation practice for those who might be sitting for the first time. A couple things I'll tell you before we begin. Nothing's going to happen to you. You're not going to float away. You're not going to have any mystical, magical experiences. The mind that races all day long is not going to shut off. Don't judge your practice. Meaning, don't ask yourself, are you doing this right? Are you doing this wrong? We're just going to sit. We're going to breathe. You'll hear sounds inside, outside. This is life. Life is filled with chaos. And this practice is learning to get quiet and still within all of the chaos. Posture, you just want to be comfortable. If you are on a cushion, often it helps slide into the front third, pushing the stomach forward. Same thing if you're on a bench or chair. Relaxing the shoulders, sitting up straight if comfortable. I will guide us as we begin, and we'll settle into a little bit of silence. If you need to move, simply move. If you need to cough, simply cough. Most important, do not expect anything from this practice. And starting with the eyes closed if comfortable, or slightly open. Mouth is open or closed. We'll start with taking 3 deep breaths slowly. And eventually, settle into a natural rhythm of the breath. Noticing the mind as it wanders, jumping from thought to thought. Start with gently guiding the attention, focus to the stomach or chest. Breathing in, feel them rise. Breathing out, feel them fall. Simply continue this practice, observing sensation of breath, expecting nothing but to sit and breathe. And as the mind wanders, lost in thought, recognize it. Release that thought. Return attention, focus to the breath. Breathing in, follow breath in. Breathing out, follow breath out. Letting go of expectations, letting go of judgment from your practice, just sitting, breathing. learning to be comfortable in stillness, in quiet, just sitting, breathing. And with the body still, rested, and the speech quiet, aware of all sounds, and the mind learning to settle, know what it's like to just sit and breathe, knowing with each breath there's nothing else to do, nowhere else to go, and no one else to be. Everything beautiful, exactly as it is. Sitting, breathing. And once again, taking 3 deep breaths slowly. And as you slowly open the eyes, slowly beginning to move, and most important, with the practice of meditation, is to recognize how you feel now, immediately after. Compare this to how you typically feel throughout the day. Recognize the difference, if there is one. Ask yourselves how you'd prefer to feel every day for the rest of your life. And realize however you feel now, if it's quiet, calm, and still, or a busy mind, racing mind, whatever you're sitting with at this moment, has nothing to do with anything I said. It's nothing to do with how you sit and hold the hands or cross the legs. It's nothing to do with the sounds around us or anything else for that matter. It's everything to do with your own mind and your own mind's reaction to an external condition. This is what the Buddha called pratitya samuppada, means dependent origination. This is the basis of the Buddha's awakening. The word Buddha simply means awaken. He was a human being, no different than any one of us, who began to understand why he suffered, why he got angry, sad, depressed, stressed, anxious. He began to understand the causal relationship of all phenomena. And what that means, very simply, for all of us, regardless of where you come from or what you believe in or where you think you're going, your whole life is filled with things that happen. You react. More stuff happens, more reactions. That's it. That's what we get. This practice is simply learning what it's like to respond to something quietly, peacefully, still. Because for most of us, the way you responded to the last 20 minutes is quite different from how you respond to every other 20-minute period of your day. And so all we're working on is closing the gap to where the way you feel now is closer to how you feel always. Just as driven, motivated, productive, successful, whatever that means to you in your respective lives. But with a mind that's steady, clear, focused, distracted by nothing, disturbed by no one. It's not an easy practice. It's not necessarily fun. It's not an escape, as often people think it is. If your life is a crazy, hectic, stressed out mess, meditation doesn't necessarily fix that. It helps you become aware of your life that's a crazy, hectic, stressed out mess so you can make changes in your life. We don't practice meditation necessarily to be good at meditation. We practice meditation so when we go out there into the world that isn't like this, we respond in a way with kind thoughts, kind words, kind actions. It's just a practice. Meditation is free. Buddhist practice is free. It's just sitting, breathing, becoming aware of everything you think, everything you say, and everything you do. And that's it. Once we stop trying to change, fix, control, manipulate everything and everyone around us, which is where we spend so much of our time, hoping they do this, hoping they do that, wishing they would do this, wishing they would do that. So much time focused on the actions of others. And as I alluded to earlier, the actions of others are important. We should not ignore and sit in places of privilege potentially and pretend that everything is okay. It's not. The world's a mess. But are you a mess? That's the practice, to wake up to that. So when you engage in the world and you work to or fight to create the change that you want to see, that you're coming from a place of loving kindness and compassion and not from a place of hatred and anger and judgment and critique. It's really easy to point and blame everybody else for everything that's wrong, as if we ourselves have never done anything wrong. And then we put a scale on what others are doing versus what we're doing. I don't know about you, but I'm really good at justifying what I'm doing as being okay and right. Maybe I'm the only one in here who thinks that way. This is a practice. It takes time. So we continue to practice. So with that, I'll pause. For me, really prefer to respond to questions, meditation, Buddhist practice, anything you're sitting with. And to those who are joining virtually, again, welcome. Glad you're here from all over. Thanks for showing up. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat box and I'll do my best to respond. So we'll open up to questions. Yeah.
Going back to what you said before meditation about thinking thoughts. Yesterday's situation that something triggers something about angry thoughts. Often I have anxious thoughts. I stopped associating. I'm not angry. I'm having angry thoughts. So when you're in that space and you're like feeling pushed to act, but I didn't do that. I just stay with it. How do you go with that to having kind thoughts if you're right in the middle of this emotional storm and find your home?
Yeah, you probably don't.
Okay.
Yeah. So the question for those who didn't hear it, just to paraphrase, is that, which I loved how you kind of what you initially started saying was that instead of thinking you're an angry person, you're just a person who's having angry thoughts. And that changing that perception is really important because, for me, someone who grew up really angry, like identifying myself as an angry person, then you're just angry and miserable all the time. And you just label yourself as an angry, miserable person. And that's no fun. So recognizing that we're just a person doing our best who has angry thoughts, even if there's a lot of them, even still that separation is, I think, very helpful. So it's good to hear you say that you're just a person having angry thoughts. And then your question really is around, in that moment, seeing the angry thoughts, how do you kind of pause and reflect and maybe shift those angry thoughts to positive thoughts? I don't personally try to do that necessarily, but let me add a few things that maybe can help get you there. First and foremost, I think that when you have, say, angry thoughts often lead to angry words or angry actions, right? That's kind of what follows. So if you have an angry thought, not doing something about that thought, that's very nice. Yeah. Right? So that's the first step, is to have that angry thought, to recognize it and realize, okay, this is a thought, and your thoughts are what? They're just thoughts. They're temporary. They're impermanent, right? As the Buddha teaches, impermanence, and they will pass. Yes. Yeah. Like clouds, like airplanes, they're just passing through. Some of them stick longer than others. Some of them keep returning. But those thoughts that are coming up, you don't have to act on them. Yeah. So the lack of acting on an angry thought is, in fact, a wonderful thing. Like that can be enough, meaning you don't have to turn. My suggestion is not feeling like, well, there's an angry thought, I need to turn it into some beautiful thing now. No, like it's an angry thought, and maybe there's reason it's there, and maybe that reason is very valid and justified, and whatever we want to do in our own head is up to us. But maybe we have strong reasons to have, there's a lot of things in this world that if we see them and they don't strike a bit of anger, then maybe we're not really seeing what's going on. But the question then is, what do we do on it? And so doing nothing on it is great. For me, the practice of cultivating good thoughts isn't necessarily about immediately recognizing an angry thought and trying to change it. It's just stopping from acting on it.
Okay.
Yeah. And like I said earlier, I think in time, the thoughts slowly change. One thing you can do, last thing I'll say on this, one thing you can do, anyone else in here ever have angry thoughts? I'm sure you're not alone. But one thing you can do when we have an angry thought is begin to recognize what is it that we're angry at and really look at that. So it takes us away from kind of the emotional response that we're wrapped up in. So I'm angry. What am I going to do? And it puts it on understanding the situation. Maybe we're angry at ourselves. Maybe we're angry at something we didn't do. Maybe we're angry at what someone else is doing. Can we understand the suffering that others are going through that led them to do the things that we're angry at, as an example? Most people who are happy and peaceful don't do things that make people miserable. And have you ever done something that made somebody miserable? That one time in 1982, right? When we suffer or when we cause pain in others, it's very often because we are suffering. So when we see things that we then respond to with anger, it's important to understand that that person is going through tremendous suffering. Whether we agree with it or not, whether we like it or not, whether we want to see them as human or compassionate beings or not, that's up to us. But that doesn't mean that we know anything about what their experience has been. their trauma, their abuse, their life, what they were taught, how they were raised, what was pushed at them. We just view every single moment to moment to moment, and we think you're bad, I'm angry at you, you're a terrible person. And then we just close that box. And
So that's why the antidote to anger is compassion.
Yes.
What you're talking about.
yeah, it's having compassion for the others who are causing us to respond in anger. Nobody causes our anger.
No, I
It's
do.
impossible. Who causes your anger?
I do.
You do. And you've become very good at that over the years, right?
Oh,
Yeah. So it doesn't mean it's not triggered by others' actions. Of course it is.
Right.
But nobody has that power over us. But it is tough.
Thank you.
Yeah. What else? So there's a question here. How would I recommend starting the practice, such as duration and frequency? For someone starting out with meditation, how would I recommend starting as far as duration and frequency? I'm a big fan of 5 minutes every single day. Like, that's it, especially for those who are starting out and brand new. If this is not a daily practice for you, which most of you, it's not. I mean, that's the reality. Most people do not have a daily practice. If I dropped in somewhere and said, do this 20 minutes a day, twice a day, every single day for the rest of your life, the odds of that happening are pretty much zero. If I say do this once a day for 5 minutes every day, it goes up to like 0.1%. You know, I'm good with those odds. So simplify it. You don't need a class. You don't need incense. You don't need bells and whistles. You don't need somebody to lead you. You don't need to go anywhere. You have everything with you right now to sit, close your eyes, and take breaths for 3 to 5 minutes. So frequency, I think daily, and duration, I think 3 to 5 minutes. I think as you cultivate a daily practice or a more consistent practice, if you want to sit longer, great. I'm not saying don't sit longer than 5 minutes, but for many people, they often go into meditation setting goals like everything else. They're like, okay, well, I did 5 minutes today. You know, it's not like lifting weights where you're trying to like get stronger. You know, it's like, I did 5 minutes, I'm going to bump it to 7. Then usually what people are doing from 5 to 7 minutes is just looking at their watch to see if they've done 2 more minutes yet, you know? So it's not a game. It's not a race. It's not a goal. You know, if you want to sit for 2 minutes, sit for 2 minutes. If you want to sit for 30 seconds, sit for 30 seconds. But I do think it's ultimately like brushing your teeth. You know, you do it every single day. You don't change it. You don't time it. You don't do it differently. It's just routine, habit, you know, a minute, 2 minutes, whatever, and you're done. And if you extend it longer than that, that's okay too. So, yeah, but don't get wrapped up in judging it. Was it a good meditation or bad meditation? It's just sitting and breathing, you know. To my knowledge, looking around, you all survived it, so you all did well. What else? Yeah.
My 4-year-old asked on the way here, why is it called a temple?
Yeah. And you didn't know what to say?
No, I didn't know why the word temple. Why?
Yeah. Are you talking about this place specifically, or just the history of like the word temple?
I think she was specifically referring to this place.
Yeah, that's great. I was already bracing myself because I knew the question was going to be more difficult than any other question ever asked. Because for those who didn't hear it, started with, on the way here, my 4-year-old asked me. So usually the questions from 4-year-olds, no offense to all you non-4-year-olds, but are pretty deep. And the question was, why is it called a temple? That's a great question. I couldn't tell you about, like, does anyone know? I mean, I can tell you why we call it a Dharma Bum Temple, but anyone know the history of the word temple? Like what temple even means or where it comes? I don't know. Anybody? We got nothing. Google, right? You can Google that. The reason we call this the Dharma Bum Temple is, in brief, when we started it, it actually in the very early days, we started, which is funny because every year end I think about this as I kind of reflect on the past year and the past, you know, when I do my offerings, they may say to Buddha there. I've been taking refuge in front of that may say to Buddha and staring at that for 20 years. You know, since we bought this, I've been doing this same thing day in and day out for 20 years. And it's really cool at the end of the year to kind of reflect on all of that. When we started at the end of 2006, we first called it the Dharma Bum Center. We took the name Dharma Bums from good luck explaining Jack Kerouac to your 4-year-old. So I would wait on that. But, you know, the name came from Kerouac's book, The Dharma Bums. And in the early days, we called it a center, Dharma Bum Center. because you really wouldn't just call something a temple. Like it's, you know, kind of has heavy meaning to it, and maybe religious practice, which I still don't think we do here. And so you don't just start a temple. And then a year and a half in as the Dharma Bum Center, it was kind of a mess and very much a place Kerouac would have loved to hang out at. So the end of 2008, we changed it to temple, because we weren't really treating our own, this was when we were downtown the first 10 years, we weren't really treating the space the way we would have treated it. If we went to a Buddhist temple, we would behave a certain way, right? I would behave a certain way. Well, here we were a year and a half into this Dharma Bum Center thing, and I wasn't even behaving in the space that we built. So we changed it to temple, one, because just symbolically, the name itself had very much a place of reverence. Again, this is just my association with the word temple. It's a place you respect. It's a place you take care of. It's a place you treat properly. It's a place you have, you know, I have endless gratitude for being in this place for the last 20 years. Like what it's done for my life is beyond words. And so to me, a temple it's a place that you take care of. And the second thing is the fact that you don't just start a temple was also kind of like the funny thing to us. Like, well, then let's call it a temple, because you don't just start a temple. Like that's ridiculous. Who does that? You know? So don't tell anyone. Apparently a 4-year-old is on to us. But I think if I had to answer that question for a 4-year-old, because all of that's a lot, I would say, why do we call it a temple? Because it's a place that we respect and take care of. Yeah. And in that regard, your 4-year-old's room can be a temple, you know, the physical space we're in, our bodies, everything can be a temple, things that we respect and take care of. You know, I think we can expand the word temple to mean just things that we love and care for. Yeah. Let me know how that goes. Feedback. The drive home. Yeah. Complexity. Yeah.
My 6.5-year-old.
Oh.
Having all these discussions about religions and different religions, and he goes to school where it's very multicultural and
Yeah.
everywhere, and now it's Christmas and Hanukkah and all the things. So he was asking, well, why church and why temple?
Yeah.
And why these different names for these different places?
Totally.
So
They're so much smarter than we are.
I don't know that you have an answer.
You know, I mean, I just, so right now downstairs, the third Saturday of every month, we do the family sangha, meaning parents are up here and kids are downstairs. So downstairs, there's a bunch of 4- and 6-year-olds running around doing fun stuff, drawing and being peaceful. And we're sitting here, you know, exploring our problems, right? We should just go color. You know, I think that people put labels on, you know, the Buddhist teachings ultimately are about understanding a dualistic mind that we have created for ourselves. This versus that, good versus bad, right versus wrong, me versus you. And you know, without turning into this some like heavy religious faith question, people look to separate people. And I think religion is one way that we do that, because ultimately, to me, all my limited knowledge of religions is, for the most part, they're all teaching you to love each other and take care of each other and do good things. You know, you have thousands of years of history of religions, and why, I don't know. But they can bring people together, and they can also drive people apart. I don't think many people come to a Dharma Bum temple because maybe they don't like religion. A lot of people come here are very, you know, devout and faith, you know, strong faith in their religious beliefs and everywhere in between. And I think from the Buddhist lens, it's important to understand that at the time of the Buddha, you know, for the most part, they were Hindu, and they believed in endless gods and goddesses. And the Buddha was asked 12 or 14 questions he wouldn't answer. And one of them was, should we believe in, you know, gods and goddesses? And the Buddha said, I'm just a human. I can't tell you what to believe in. If you believe in them, you do. If you don't, you don't. I'm just here to teach you to be kind and compassionate. And so I think, to me, that's the essence and the heart of the practice. But yeah. What else? Yeah.
So in the practice of the Heart Sutra, we recite the sutra with the intent of not trying to understand it. And the thing we do right after is when word by word try to extract some meaning.
Yeah.
I just wonder if you could share some background on why the practice is given that way.
Yes, tomorrow, Sunday, 1 o'clock at the Heart Sutra class that you're at week in and week out. Why are you asking that today?
Well, because this is the space we ask.
You could ask tomorrow.
But then tomorrow you say you need to ask it.
You have learned. You got me there. You are right. And since you won that battle, I will respond. I think that the question was on the Heart Sutra. The Sunday class Heart Sutra. We recite the Heart Sutra, and then we sit silently for 20 minutes, and I discourse on the sutra, and then people share. We take it. We've been doing the sutra. It's super brief. The entire sutra takes us like 90 seconds to recite. It's like half a page, and it's been chanted for 2,000 years and recited. And as I always say, one of the beautiful things about that is at the moment we're chanting it, there's probably hundreds of thousands to millions of people reciting it at that very moment around the world. And it's true. So the question was, when we recite sutra, the practice of reciting sutra, it's not meant to be figured out, especially the Heart Sutra. But then after, we spend time trying to figure it out. And we've been going through it word for word. So this half a page, we're like a year and 7 months into going through. So we will finish our exploration of this half-page Heart Sutra in about 2 years. What was your question? Why the
Practice.
You're talking about why we do it word for word?
Or why we also do that part of analysis and
Oh, why do we bother analyzing it afterwards? Yeah. People like to think, truly, that's not even the practice. Like, the practice is to just recite the sutra and move on. I don't know. I got to fill an hour somehow. Right? I know I'm not giving you what you want, but I think the Heart Sutra is about the teachings of emptiness. And the emptiness teachings in Buddhism are not meant to be understood or intellectually figured out. But yes, after we recite the Heart Sutra, we then spend 30 minutes trying to kind of intellectually figure it out, going word for word. The reason we go word for word for me is because then it takes just one individual word without the whole meaning of the sutra. So we begin to look at kind of dissecting each individual word. If you think about our lives are lived moment to moment. But we tend to look back in our lives and say, well, I've had 30 years, I've had 80 years, whatever. We look back at years or months or whatever, but without realizing that every year of our life is just a year's worth of moments. Your entire life to this point is an entire life's worth of one breath at a time, one moment at a time. But we don't always think about that. We look at like, well, what were the last 10, especially end of year, we're like, what was this year like? What's the next 2026 going to be like? The practice, to me, in the emptiness teachings is to look at what is each moment. And then in the practice of each moment, understand, is our perception of that moment accurate? Is our perception of each moment accurate? That's a question. What do y'all think? No. So well trained we are. It's just our perception. But when you roam around the rest of the day, right? We're going to wrap up here in a few minutes. You got the whole day today. As you go throughout your day today and you look at people and places and things, what are you going to think about your perception that you are what? Right. As I always joke on Sunday, it's so nice to be in a room filled with people who are always right. So the Heart Sutra, to me, explaining it and understanding it is actually done to help us understand that we cannot truly understand anything. And in the practice of not understanding anything, that's very liberating to me as a practice. Because when I want to understand something, I want to be right. I want it to align with my perception and my views of reality. The world does not align with my views of reality. As Thich Nhat Hanh says, nirvana, which is freedom from suffering, is freedom from views. And when I first heard this teaching, I was like, my view was, do I like this teaching? And then what I began to realize was it's not about my views going away. It's not about my views changing, even though they do. It's about understanding that with my view, there's also what? Everybody else's views. So when I'm attached to my views, and if you have views you're attached to, that you're just convinced you're right, And therefore, everybody else is wrong. And you put them in a box and say, I'm right, come with me, you're wrong over here. And we separate people. Freedom from views to me means, can I at least listen to other people's views? Can I try to understand other people's views? Can I try to not attach to mine and realize my views are just there because of what I was taught and what I was learned and my experiences throughout life? But we hold so tightly to our views. And so we suffer a lot because the world doesn't align with how we think, so I don't know. What else? We'll do, we still got a few minutes. Other questions. There's a question here from Cinda earlier about the question around think good thoughts, speak good words, do good deeds, and how would the Buddha define good? What's the definition of good? I think even Normal shared it recently, but wholesome and unwholesome. Is that what you said? Yeah. You'll often see in very kind of technical Buddhist teachings, especially with Theravada teachings, that refer to wholesome and unwholesome actions, kind of karmic actions. So yeah, good really isn't the best word, but I mean, it's easier to fit on a t-shirt than wholesome. It's shorter. But the idea of good, even good, gives rise to bad. So it's not about good, really. It's not about bad. Wholesome or unwholesome, I like also beneficial. Is it harmful to self and others? Is it beneficial to self and others? And yes, I understand that all of these things still align with some judgment of thinking we know what's good or what's wholesome or what's right or all these kinds of things. But much of our day, not always, right? As I often say, do you all know when you do things that are good and beneficial and wholesome? For the most part. Do you know when you're doing things that are not good and not wholesome and not beneficial to self and others? For the most part. Do those things less, right? And more of the other things. But yes, ultimately, if we had this, ultimate sense of wisdom, then we would know what is best in every situation, but we don't. So I find that, the term good or wholesome or beneficial comes back to looking honestly at what is our intention behind each action. And if our intention is to bring love and kindness to self and others, then, that's, I think in many cases, the best we can do without knowing what ultimate wisdom actually is. So what else?
When I think a good word or a good thought, if I don't have anything nice to say, I try not to say it at all. Otherwise, I feel like I'm not being honest with myself. If they are doing something that I don't like, I'm not going to turn it around and say, oh, that's nice. When inside, I'm totally thinking very negative.
Yeah. And it's hard to, and sometimes, as you know, Paula, I mean, sometimes silence is not always, I think the Buddha was very much an activist, very much, he spent 45 years roaming around teaching people to be kind and compassionate. So he didn't remain silent. So sometimes silence is not the best course of action. But sometimes in day-to-day lives and day-to-day situations, it sometimes may be easier to just not, say anything and not spin things around.
Yeah, but is silence better than lying?
Well, that's up for you to decide. I mean, I'm no priest. I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna set you free on any of those things. The question was, is silence better than lying? Again, what's your intention? There's a story which you've heard me tell of the Buddha, where it's called the Jataka tales, past lives of the Buddha, and they're stories. But the general idea is he was a child, and they came to a mother bear, and the cubs were starving to death, and this child said, "Go get help," so they could help the mother bear because she was malnourished, and so he said, "Go get help. I'll stay here." And what he ended up doing was feeding himself to the mother bear, so she was nourished enough to be able to feed her cubs. And the story is that his very next life, he was born as Siddhartha Gautama, who became the Buddha. Again, they're stories. So the idea was he lied, told them to go away, ended up feeding the cubs, saving the mother's life, and he became Siddhartha. Sounds pretty cool. That's like a win-win if you ask me. So again, I think it comes down to what's your intention. But I really do think we have to challenge ourselves to ask ourselves, yes, is silence always the best thing? And if you don't want to lie to yourself, it also depends on the situation. And, there's a lot of variables there about how much confrontation you want to get into with certain people. Because, yeah, you could see the expression on her face. Sometimes it's worth it, and sometimes it's not worth it. But that's up to each individual to choose. Yeah. So we'll do one more before we close. Yeah.
So what can I expect you to get out of meditation?
Nothing. Stop. I'm not even going to let you finish that question. So about 5 years ago, there was a guy here. He came for the first time, probably even longer than that. He was sitting right up here. He looked just like you, very similar. And he came in. It was his first time here. There's this guy, and I told this story for years until the person finally came back, and then I could tie the person to the story because I couldn't for the life of me remember who the person was. But he came in, and he was having a rough day. You could just tell. He was sitting right up here, and I think it was his first time here, maybe second, but I think first time. And he raised his hand, and he said, it was just a rough, I don't even remember the opening line. It was a rough story. And he said, when I go home, I just want my wife to be as happy to see me as she is when my dog comes in, And what did I say? That's impossible. I said, that's never going to happen. All you can focus on is your thoughts, your words, your actions, dropping the expectations, dropping the competition with your dog, right? Dropping the idea that you're going to gain anything. That's where you should come. You should come to Sundays. Do you work Sundays? Because there's a line in the Heart Sutra that says, with nothing to attain, bodhisattvas, enlightened beings, attain anuttara samyak sambodhi, supreme ultimate enlightenment. So what the Heart Sutra is telling us, with nothing to attain, practicing prajna paramita, perfection of wisdom, you attain enlightenment, but only with the idea of nothing to attain. So I'll close on this thought. How long have you been at your meditation practice?
Real consistently right now, 7 weeks.
Yeah. And how's it? Is it helping you?
Yeah.
Great. That's it. Right? You don't need to look for more. You don't need to add anything. You don't need to think, when am I going to get there? Let meditation practice be the one thing that you don't expect anything from. So much of the reasons we suffer in lives is because we expect so many things from so many people, which is why I thought about the dog story, right? We expect so much from people. And who do we expect the most from very often? Ourselves. And how long have you been letting yourself down? A long time, right? Drop the expectations of ourselves, drop the expectations of others. Just sit quietly for a few moments each day. Try to be as kind as possible and leave it at that. That's it. And see how that works for you. So you're practicing, but not with some goal. Because when we set goals and we have things we try to attain, what ends up happening? We feel like a what?
Failure.
A failure. And how long have you felt like a failure? Most of your life. So why would we add one more thing into our lives that's supposed to bring us peace and happiness? Sorry, I gave it away. It's supposed to bring us peace and happiness, but we ruin that by setting the goal of where's my peace? Where's my happiness? Just sit, think good thoughts, speak good words, do good deeds. So I'm going to close on that. We'll join palms. May any merit gained from this practice be transferred to all beings in all directions. May all beings be at peace. May all be free from suffering. May this merit be transferred to Pam during her time of rebirth, and to Mark and his family and friends who suffer at this time. May they all be at peace. May we all be at peace. All right. right. And before you all head out, our Dharma Bum host, Gene, will come up, has a few announcements. Two things while Gene's coming up. Is Kevin Hurley here?
Yeah.
Where you at? Will you go downstairs afterwards? Because you offered to help a couple weeks ago, and we've been trying to track you down. So Maggie's downstairs. Thanks. And are you going to mention Christmas, or should I? Okay. Christmas. So holidays. Someone asked earlier about Christmas. Holidays. Don't take this the wrong way. Like, we just have days in the Dharma Bum Temple, meaning our schedules don't change. So whatever Christmas Day is, somebody asked, it's a Thursday. That means we'll have our normal Thursday schedule, 8 a.m. meditation, noon meditation, and we'll do food redistribution at 4:30 because it's a Thursday. But we don't do any special events or anything like that as far as the holiday stuff goes. Normal schedule.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Hello, everyone. I'm today's host, Jean. We opened the Dharma Bum Temple 18 years ago to introduce Buddhist practice to those who show up. Those who lead are not nuns, monks, gurus, masters, or teachers, and are not looking for students. They are simply practitioners sharing their interpretation of the practice. Every night we have different classes led by different people with various Buddhist traditions. We have a recovery sangha that meets several times a week for anyone with addiction, and our food redistribution program is every Thursday at 4:30. We have classes and programs every day, and everything we offer here is always free. The full schedule is on our website, and also posted on the entryway above the shoe rack. We have a lending library. If you see a book you like, feel free to borrow it and then bring it back whenever you are done with it. Please straighten your seat or cushion before you head out. And also, just a couple other things. We have the temple cleaning right after this today.
Tiffany. I was gonna say.
Yeah, and also tomorrow is the community cleaning event, and the flyer is in the hallway out here. So thank you all for being here, and we wish you well and hope to see you all again.
You're gonna be downstairs, or? So that's Tiffany by the door. She leads the community cleanup. So we'd love to have some help. Thanks, Tiffany.